Okay, my first pick. This is going to be an easy one. So Joe Montana obviously is not in this draft because it is the Joe Montana Memorial Draft, even though he's not dead.
You did it.
Yes, I did it. But that was such a basic answer that everyone's expecting that. Let's do something fun.
But he didn't look weird in the uniform. That's the problem. And so I'm fine that he's off the board. I don't think I necessarily would have taken him.
Mike,
so fine.
let's live.
Joe Montana, Memorial Draft, even though he's not dead. Go ahead.
Let's live, Mike. Let's throw caution to the wind. Let's be young kids again. Okay, here it is. Emmitt Smith, Arizona Cardinals. Every time I see this, it looks fake. I cannot believe he played for the Arizona Cardinals. It was so weird, even at the time. Look at that. It was weird when it happened. It was weird, every time he got a carry for the Cardinals. Emmitt Smith is a Cowboy. He's one of the most iconic Cowboys. And then he went, and obviously it was the tail end of his career. He got, did he break the record with the Cardinals?
Yes.
He did, right?
I think he did.
Yeah. So that's even weirder when he has like a historic, monumental moment, and it's Emmitt Smith in a Cardinals uniform. Crazy to see. He is number one on my list.
Second Emmitt Smith reference today. We made the reference earlier to your beard is weird, your stash is trash, and his new uniform with the Cardinals was weird. But he did set the all-time rushing record while a member of the Arizona Cardinals. First pick for me, and we've talked about this recently, and I actually found the image of the football card because what they did, they did a Photoshop of the quality of the Tom Brady Photoshops that we had during the TV segment a moment ago. John Unitas to the Chargers. That is weird, still weird, all these years later, well before your time, Big Cat, but an iconic member of the Baltimore Colts, finishes out his career with the Chargers, and they basically took a picture of him in a Colts uniform and got like a yellow felt pen and turned some of the white yellow to make it look like a Chargers uniform. That was the football card for John Unitas with the then San Diego Chargers after he left the Baltimore Colts. And that still resonates for me all these years later because it's one of those things that, like, as you're a young football fan, it's one of those things that just, like, bursts your bubble that, like, wait a minute, it's not like college where you only ever play for one team. Like, you can play, like, a guy who's a star can play for another team. So that one's weird, and I'll never forget that one. John Unitas on the Chargers.
Great pick, Mike. You just locked up our 80 and older audience.
Just stop.
Good job for you. All right, I'll go with another one that's a no-brainer for me. This one makes no sense when you look at it, and it's a guy who actually was on 4 different teams, Mike. One of them he never actually played for or suited up for. It's Jerry Rice on his 3rd team, the Seattle Seahawks. So obviously he went 49ers to Raiders, which Bay Area, both classic jerseys, it doesn't look as weird. But when you see a picture of Jerry Rice on the Seahawks, that is jarring to see. It makes no sense for your brain. Of course, he finished with the Broncos, but he never actually, suited up in a game. So Jerry Rice with the Seahawks is my next pick. Do we have a picture? Because it looks weird. It really does. When you see it, it looks very, very weird.
I recall it correctly. And look, he was even weirder when he went to the Broncos because he never really did anything with the Broncos. I mean, he's a guy who didn't have just one team after the team he was excellent with. He had the Raiders. He had the Seahawks, who at the time were in the same division then? No. 2002 is when the Seahawks left the AFC West. But it was like the AFC West tour after he left the 49ers with the Seahawks and then the Broncos. All right, that's a good one. See, for me, the weirdest ones were when I was a kid. So you're going to scoff at this one.
No, go for it.
Franco Harris, Seattle Seahawks. Far weirder than Jerry Rice, Seattle Seahawks. Because, first of all, the Seahawks were a fairly new team, so everything about the Seahawks was weird in the late 70s. On top of that, one of the most iconic players in the history of football, the Immaculate Reception, recently named the #1 play of all time in 100 seasons of professional football. And for me, growing up 60 miles from Pittsburgh, Franco Harris was just a larger-than-life figure. I see him now, and I'm still in awe. It seems like every year on the way back from the Super Bowl, we're on the same plane. The guy's great. I can't imagine him with a team other than the Steelers. And that image of him sitting on the bench with the Seattle Seahawks is just jarring to me still all these years later. So I know where I'm going to do well with the over 60 crowd. But Franco Harris to the Seahawks, far weirder than Jerry Rice to the Seahawks.
That's a good pick. It's not a great pick because I have a great 3rd pick. And I think we actually probably should go 4 rounds in this draft because we probably have a little bit of time. But my 3rd pick, and I have many more that I can do.
Thanks, producer.
Yeah, my third pick is going to be one that I think most people forget even happened. Randy Moss, who was on a bunch of different teams on the Tennessee Titans. That one makes no sense. And when you see it, you can see Randy Moss. If you close your eyes, you can see Randy Moss on the Patriots. You can see him on the Vikings. Obviously, he's a Viking. And you can also see him kind of on the Raiders. But the Titans, look at that. How weird does that look? It's crazy to see a guy like that who you can visualize even on all the different teams he played, but you can never visualize him being on the Titans, and there he is.
2010, what happened was he was in the last year of his contract with the Patriots, and he was complaining about his future with the team. They traded him to the Vikings for a third-round pick, and it was nirvana for Vikings fans. Randy Moss is back. He had at the press conference, get your 84 jerseys out, and I was at the game at MetLife Stadium where he caught the touchdown pass. It was Brett Favre's, 500th or something like that, and then all of a sudden he was cut. Brad Childress cut him in part because there was a Friday during the season where he criticized the catering that was done that day. He said he wouldn't feed that bleep to his dogs. He was cut the following Monday. Brad Childress called him a programmatic non-fit, whatever that means. There's an SAT word for you, Big Cat. And your buddy Jeff Fisher claimed him on waivers with the Titans. He finished the year 8 games, 4 starts, 6 catches for 80 yards, sat out 2011, came back the following year for the 49ers. There's your Randy Moss history lesson.
It's a great lesson. And I think what comes down to like all these jerseys that we're throwing out there is if you go to a historic franchise and you're a Hall of Famer like Randy Moss, when he goes to the 49ers, when he goes to the Raiders, it doesn't look as jarring because those are historic franchises that feel like they're home of Hall of Famers. It's when you have a Randy Moss on the Titans or you have a Jerry Rice on the Seahawks before they obviously had their success with Russell Wilson, that's where it's like, what's going on here? And Tom Brady, if he goes to the Bucs or the Titans or the Jaguars, like there's a few teams out there that it would look very, very weird if he put their uniforms on.
And that makes me even more convinced if he does leave. And look, Vegas has it at 1-2 that he's going to stay with the Patriots. If he does leave, to me, I think it's the 49ers or the Patriots. And I don't know that the 49ers are even interested in Tom Brady. I think he would be interested in them. It's the team he grew up rooting for. And I think of all the other uniforms, Big Cat, he would look the most natural and normal in the 49ers uniform. Without question. Every other uniform would not look right. Maybe the Raiders. It would be cool to see him in the Raiders uniform, and that I think maybe I would buy a Raiders Brady jersey. That would be the hottest selling jersey of all time without question. But I think the 49ers makes the most sense.
Okay, what's your last
from a
pick?
visual standpoint?
Yeah.
Last pick for me. I thought we were doing. I thought we were doing 4 rounds. My next pick is John Unitas. L.A. Rams back in the 70s. Again, you can give me a hard time, but these are not John Unitas, Joe Namath with the Rams back in the 70s. Joe Namath with the Rams back in the 70s after leaving the Jets. That was just weird, and I know the Rams weren't a bad team then. What's that for?
That's because I won the draft. That's because I won the draft.
Why?
I won the draft again. My picks are so much better than yours, and I won the draft, Mike, because I win the draft every single Friday. I mop the floor with you. I've said this every single Friday. I'll say it again. So my last pick, because everyone knows that I win these drafts.
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to get 15 emails saying, why do you have that guy on Friday? He disrespects you. He's a big jerk. He's insecure. Why does he have to do that every week? And I tell them that that's okay. He had a rough week. I'm fine. I'm going to try to be a good host. I just let him, and I'll clean up the mess when he leaves. It's no problem.
It's good to know that your wife has 15 email addresses. Hey, he's too mean. All right, so my last pick, because I dominate this draft every single time, and we could never even visualize Mike Florio and the word success in the same sentence. My last pick is this. Mike Florio, there's also a plug, Mike Florio in the yellow jersey. Tune in to the Tour de France this summer, NBC Sports. Look at that. You never could see him in the lead. You could never see him wearing that yellow jersey and being number 1. Isn't that weird?
We're stretched into a 4th round just so you could do that, and you conspired with the control room to create that stupid image. What am I wearing on my head?
I don't know, but I look good. I look like I'm actually going to pass you. If we're being honest, even in first place, I look better than you.
All right. Well, now I can't do a real pick in my four. Let's just end it there. I was going to pick Alan Page with the Bears because for me, that hit home. That was painful to see the guy who, in my mind, was the Vikings defense playing for your Chicago Bears. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't do it. I refused to accept it.
That's a good one.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, let's go.
That's bad.
Let's throw out a couple just rapid fire, Mike. I had Ed Reed on the Texans. That is a crazy one. Brett Favre, obviously, on the Vikings. And Jay Cutler on the Dolphins was personally shocking for me. But there are good ones out there that, you know, it's crazy to see these guys. You're like, wait, what? He's on the LaDainian Tomlinson on the Jets still kind of screws with me when I see that, even though he was, decent.
This is the only context in which I'll mention this human being, but O.J. Simpson on the 49ers was bizarre after all those years with the Bills. And look, you mentioned Emmitt Smith to the Arizona Cardinals. And I think it got less weird for this guy I'm going to mention because they had some success. But, man, the first time I saw Kurt Warner in that Cardinals uniform, I was like, this isn't right. This is not right. And he had the gloves on, and he had the white helmet with the mildly perturbed bird on the side. It's like, this guy is the greatest show on turf, and you're putting him in a Cardinals uniform, but they got to the Super Bowl. So that was part of the fun of that ride. Yeah. Like, it's like it legitimized the franchise, and it legitimized the concept of Kurt Warner on the Cardinals.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.